Hey there, so this is just going to be a quick video on using Serum as a drum or percussion synth. I think it's a really great synth for that, and this is just going to be showing kind of a tip or trick that I like to use to make it even just that much better. So anyone who's familiar with Serum knows envelope 1 is always mapped to the sort of invisible master volume envelope. So I always like to keep that for percussion sounds with the sustain all the way up and the release, a little bit of release, so that the sub envelopes on the individual oscillators can have room to release a bit. So this is just a starting of a sound. There's an oscillator sine wave with a tiny bit of pitch modulation to just do that kind of like the start of a drum snap, and then there's a noise oscillator. So I'm going to use LFOs as envelopes because I think that's just a really easy way to make these snappy sort of drum envelopes. So starting with that, LFO 1 to the noise. I'm going to mute oscillator A for now. So this is a polar additive modulator. That's how they work in Serum. So it's adding to the level. And that's cool. So that's how you make a snappy sound. I add the oscillator A, go to LFO 3, which I already have set up. Do the same thing. And I can have the same shape, but just change the rate to make LFO 3 a little longer, which maybe you would want for depending on what kind of snare sound you're trying to make. But the problem that I have with this method is if I'm say saving a patch that I want to come back and tweak to fit into different tracks, in order to change the level, I have the actual level knob all the way down on both of these, and the amplitude, the maximum amplitude, is entirely based upon the LFO and its level in the matrix, or its level here in the modulation. I don't know what you call this, the ring. So if I want to change these in relation to each other, say I just want to add a little more noise, I actually have to go to LFO 1, click on it, and then change the rate here, which if you just want to have a patch that you can open and tweak, it's a little slow. I find it a little frustrating sometimes because I like to kind of like pre-prepare basic patches and then go in and get them adjusted for different songs. But there's a way to get around it. So one thing you can do, so I have LFO 1 as my noise source. What I'll do is I will use macro 1 as noise. So I'll set that as the aux source, macro 1. And the aux source is a multiplication modulator. So if I turn this down, I hear nothing. And as I turn this up, it determines the maximum level. So this is still all the way down, but if I quickly open this patch, I can see, oh, this is my noise level here. So that's useful. Can do the same thing. LFO 3 is my oscillator A volume. And I'll put that to macro 2. I have to turn it on. So that's a way to do it. It's a pretty good way to do it, I would say, especially if you're making a patch that you might want to use later. The only problem here is then you're giving up these macros just for that one thing, which maybe, I don't know, some people love to use these macros. I like using them. So I might not want to give up a macro just for something like that. There's one more way that you can do this. There's a way to use the LFOs as a multiplication modulator, which just sort of like some trickiness in the matrix. So what you do, I'm going to unassign this. I'm going to move these sources here to the aux source. So LFO1 will be the aux source. LFO3 will be the aux source. And for these two sources, I'm going to use a fixed modulator, which is just a fixed level that stays static. I'll put them all the way down. And then as a mod here, I'll turn it, instead of multiplication, into inverse multiplication. And so what that does is it means through the way they're multiplied against each other, it means that you can set a level with the level knob, and that will be your maximum level. And the envelope or LFO that you're using, it only has that amount of power. So yeah, I think this is my favorite way to do it. It's kind of weird to like wrap your head around at first. So you just want to put it all the way down the opposite direction of the way it was before. So if you want it up here, you want it all the way here. You put your source that you want to have as the source as your aux source, and your main source as fixed. And that's it. So this is just a tip. I kind of stumble around looking for a better way to do this, and I think it's really useful, especially for drum and percussion sounds, just because it helps you be able to open up Hatch and then like make little changes and still have them be. I just find it, for me, it works really well. So hopefully that was useful to you. Thanks a lot for watching.